All right. Actually, while we're waiting to get started, so we'll give it another minute before we actually get into the workshop. But why don't we go ahead and participate in our virtual icebreaker? So, being that we're in a virtual environment and we're not in a room all together, let's go ahead and take this time to get to know get to know each other, get to know one another. And if in the chat box, if you can go ahead and share your name, your business name, your organization, if you're from an organization today, your role. And if you're still planning on starting a business, the type of business you plan to start. And if you already have some social media handles, feel free to include that along with any websites or anything else that you have set up for your business. So let's go ahead and take some time to do that right now.
Huh?
All right, well, the time's now 4:04. So if you haven't had a chance to go ahead and enter your information for the virtual icebreaker, please do so. If you could just put in your name, name of your business, or the type of business you're looking to start. And if you're visiting from an organization today, just the name of your organization, your role, and feel free to include any business social media handles or any websites that you'd like to share. So with that said, let's go ahead and start our workshop. So it's just a quick introduction as to who we are and what we do. So some of you may be familiar with CIELO, and some of you, this might be the first time you've attended any one of our programs. So CIELO stands for Community for Innovation, Entrepreneurship, Leadership, and Opportunities. We've been around since 2012. So we officially launched in 2015, but we've been helping clients since 2012. We are a nonprofit organization helping aspiring entrepreneurs become business owners. We help you build and develop the entrepreneur mindset needed to help you achieve success. We provide the resources and guidance, and you provide the hard work and the passion. So being that we are a nonprofit, all of our services are at no cost. We don't charge for what we do. And some of the services that we do offer here at CIELO, we do offer a small business development training program, which a few of you who are on this call have actually participated in. We do monthly entrepreneur workshops, just like this one that we are doing today. We do also offer one-on-one small business coaching. We do have a client navigation part of our of CIELO, which is meant to help support businesses up to launch and even afterwards. We do have a microgrant program for CIELO business startups. So if you enroll in our small business development training program, you may be eligible to receive a microgrant for startup funds. And we also aim to be a connection for small business resources and services. So some upcoming events that we have going on, that we have coming up for CIELO. Our next small business startup program will be taking place on February 27th, 2023. So take a journey on the entrepreneur roadmap to business launch. This is a 6-week training program for entrepreneurs and startups. This includes a live classroom training on Zoom, followed by 3 weeks of one-on-one business coaching. And topics include how to pick a business name, advertising on social media, introduction to business financials, and much, much more. So if you're interested, go ahead, you can scan that QR code, or you can email us at info@cielocommunity.org. and I believe the registration will be opening up in the next week or so. Be on the lookout for that. Some reminders for today's workshop. We will be sending a recap email by the end of this week. We are actually recording this workshop as well too. So definitely feel free to take notes, but if we are going too fast where it's hard to actually take notes, we will be recording this actual workshop, and any presentation deck that is made available by our guest speaker, we'll also share that as well too, along with our guest speaker contact information. And we will have a Q&A session at the end of the workshop. We always like to reserve 10 to 15 minutes to ask any questions. So if you have any questions that come up, feel free to say that for the Q&A session, and we'll be able to ask our guest speaker. So with that said, I'm very excited for today's topic. Today's topic is financial essentials for small businesses, presented by our partner Zaida with Essential Financial Coaching. As you can all probably tell, when it comes to financials for small businesses, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of unknowns, and it can be complicated, it can be intimidating. So really happy to have Zaida to actually be here, present on this topic, and share her knowledge. So Zaida, with that said, I'll go ahead and I'll pass the floor on to you.
Okay, thank you, Alex, for that introduction. And hello, everyone. Welcome, and I'm glad to see such a great group today. Maybe some have seen me around, maybe some haven't yet, but welcome. And I'm glad you are all in this journey. You know, I think CIELO is a great organization. They themselves helped me to actually also get my idea of just being able to share my passion for finances. You know, like first, for me, like my profession is an accountant, but then what I really like is when I can actually relate to others, how much it's not just about the numbers, how it is also about, you know, how we actually interact with others, and how we also have certain habits. And if we're made aware of that, you know, that can also be actually put in the foundations of our finances. So as for small businesses, it's not just the individual approaches that we're taking, but it's also what is reflected in our business. So, I don't know if anyone, there's a Spanish speaker, I do speak Spanish too. So if, you know, like I'll do this presentation in English, but then sometimes people reach out and I can also explain more in detail in Spanish if that's the preferred language, okay? So, so I'll do a tiny introduction in Spanish. So, hola, me llamo Zaida y solo quería saber si alguien está más cómodo con español, pueden también hacer una cita de uno a uno conmigo, y yo también puedo explicar más términos y lo que voy a presentar ahora más en español. Y por eso es una buena manera de también yo conocer y dar más consejo uno a uno en español. ¿Ok? Gracias. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So some of the presentation, if you already been part of like the first cohort, which I'm honored to already be included as a partner with CIELO, I was able to actually, and also with Jessica's group, so the child's care, there she is. I did a great presentation, so I'm just glad that I'm able already to share all this. So this is, in every presentation, I just keep developing more and more on, you know, the different questions I have. And as for everybody knows, it's the favorite season of the year for accountants. It's tax season, so I definitely will go ahead and focus a little bit more in this presentation on taxes, because I know I always get questions, and now, as being like my third official year as a tax preparer, I have learned a lot, and I hope to always learn more so I can go ahead and relate that over to you. Okay, so I'll get started with the presentation. So give me 1 second to set that up. And also, like, if you have a question that you don't want to forget, go ahead and type it in. And I know Alex is going to keep an eye on that too. So just, you know, we don't want to like have you forget your questions at the end. So let me go ahead. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So really this presentation has to do with the essentials that at least I found are important as to build as a foundation. But then from this, some people are more familiar with it, some people are not. And even in this, there's different views on the financial essentials. So I just want to present how I see them, how I relate to them, and then you can definitely, form your opinion on what you feel can be related and put into practice in your business. Okay, so the first thing I'll definitely always point out, and it's not really sometimes everybody's favorite, but it's really a budget. And when it comes to your finances, it's just really wanting to know and really telling your money where it's gonna go. And as CIELO emphasizes, you start actually doing a financial plan from the very beginning, but then you also want to relate this to when those sales start happening, because usually they start happening pretty fast, especially if you are really there with your ideal clients and getting, traction, you're getting those sales. But I always tell people, stop and take a look at where this money is going to, because if you don't take a really inside look, sometimes it's just all of a sudden seems to disappear. So I know sometimes it's hard to sit down and actually, plan this budget, but I say it's really important to do that first. Then, apart from the budget, you want to also see, and maybe this is, you could say, oh, you need first the entity and then the budget, but honestly, I would say they even go kind of hand in hand, because you want a budget to start that business, but also you want to make sure you know what kind of entity you're going to form at the end. And this is a common question that I know CIELO has referred me to go ahead and take an inside look at the different clients they have, because the industry could range, and also the business goals. So I don't think one size fits all for business, because everybody has different goals at the end of what they want to achieve with the particular business. So when we're talking about a business entity, and I'll go ahead and show the top 6 entities in the US. So there's a lot, right? But now we're seeing the terms. I think you'll start noticing, oh, okay, I've heard of some of them. So of course, there's the sole proprietor, there's the general partnerships, limited partnerships, limited liability, or what they call LLC, the C corporations and S corporations. So the big thing when you're looking at all these terms is seeing, and as the tax preparer, I can tell you how your taxes are going to be affected, and also sometimes how, as with the liability aspect, how because it's a small business, how your personal property is going to be affected. So I always also advise for people to start seeing how their industry is going to be, how they can, actually prepare for their business and their industry they're in. So an example I can tell you is, like, for me, I'm in financial services, right? I do financial coaching, maybe some bookkeeping. So that's all service. So, but it's someone who might do more like, maybe a little craft that's actually like a tangible object that might be looked at differently. So, and maybe you're looking at, like, you have your personal house, you have, a personal, like a lot of large assets. You want to maybe protect them and keep them separate from your actual business. So again, everybody's situation is different. So I definitely recommend you to start really looking at your own situation, and don't compare too much with others. You might get ideas from other, but know that for the most part, it's good to also just be informed of all the options and then kind of like see which one is going to be better for you. Okay, so when we're talking about finances and building your business, you're gonna need help. And sometimes you can start doing it yourself first, which is what happens a lot of the times. You know, everybody wants to first like make sure, and it's a good idea to make sure you know kind of what you're doing, so you know what if you end up outsourcing certain things, then you can actually know what they're doing and that they're doing it correctly, or that nothing is getting mishandled, right? We've all heard those nightmare stories. So, you know, like in a bookkeeper. So a bookkeeper essentially just tracks, you know, how your finances are going day to day. So, you know, if you're you're going to the store, buying some office supplies, you're buying supplies for your craft, you're buying, you know, like a type of equipment, like you're actually like making some sales, so you want to start tracking them. The simplest way to start, you can do it yourself, is just a pen and paper. And there's no, to me, I'm like that even in itself, like just start doing from the very start. Because sometimes it is hard to make just time to like be like, oh, let me look at all the receipts and kind of put them, you know, somewhere. It's like get yourself an agenda or something where you can, you know, keep it safe, keep it where you know you can find it, and start tracking everything. Then later on, if you're, you know, more comfortable with computer, or and that comes easy to you, go ahead and either transfer it or make yourself a quick Excel file. So this is the basic. But later on, you want to consider seeing if, you know, you either can hire someone to help you with, or you yourself, you know, can keep records of it more in an accounting software, such as, you know, the big one, QuickBooks. But just know that like just starting out from somewhere, even if it seems really basic, like pen and paper, is better than not doing it all. So then we go from bookkeeper, the accountant side. So in the accounting side, know that this is a little bit more specialized, meaning because you're actually starting to see what this data that you're entering, right? The expenses, the income, like you're really seeing what it's doing. So are you making a profit? Are you spending too much money? Or, you know, so that's what really an accountant starts to do for you. So again, you are probably with this accounting softwares are able to do that yourself. You know, you can look at a quick YouTube video, kind of see like how you can start looking at reports, or you can hire someone to start helping you. And usually even your tax preparer or tax accountant can start helping you get to know what it is that you're doing. Know that you know, you not all budgets are the same. So know what it is that you want to do, and don't be afraid to ask for the price up front. So then you know if that's something you can afford, or it's something you want to just, again, keep in house and, you know, develop from there. Okay, so we go to taxes. So of course, taxes, you know, are mandatory. No, for business, I mean, for individual, we all know too, it's mandatory. So it's the same for business. This is just, you know, a different level that you're entering. And so it is important that you keep up with, you know, the current laws, but not like, meaning that you have to keep up with everything, but have someone to help you keep up with that. Like as first, you know, the first tax return usually is a little bit of the hardest one for any business, because you're getting familiar to know what you need to track, right? What kind of expenses, what you can deduct, right? What will have your taxable income be less. So with that, just make sure that you don't like ignore it, like, because ignoring it is the hardest thing. Like one of the worst things you can do, because if you don't ignore it, there's gonna be penalties, there's gonna be fees and all this if you owe taxes. Know that if you are running at a loss, they do still expect you to do a return. And it's good to do it because sometimes they might see that, you are having income, but they won't know till you do your return that you actually spend more than you make. So no matter what, it's just, be on top of doing those taxes every year. Okay, so I wanted to show some of the different types of taxes and tax agencies. So we know the federal income taxes, we have the IRS, right? Internal Revenue Service. For state taxes, which are due in 43 states. For us, it's in California as the Franchise Tax Board. Then we have also some property taxes, which may not relate too much with businesses unless you are dealing with that. But just so you know, that's run by the California Board of Equalization. And we have the sales and use tax, which every vendor everyone who has a business that has a tangible item, make sure you know this one is important. The sales and use tax, you have to look at this one as soon as you can, establish your seller's permit, which I know is again something that CIELO also can guide through or has resources. But then know that you have to stay on top of reporting the sales and use tax, okay? And this is for the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, or for short CDTFA. And then, of course, if you are running payroll, you have to stay on top of those payroll taxes. This usually can be, something really simple after you choose who can run your payroll, it really takes off, from there. You don't have to think of all the different agencies. Usually with a payroll system or payroll company, they're able to pay all these taxes on your behalf. Okay. And then I wanted to also point out some common tax forms. So I get asked a lot about the different tax forms and how they look like, what they're.
I got the address for my brother. Oh.
And then also like, so there's federal, there's the state tax forms. There's of course the sales and use tax return. There's some payroll tax forms. So again, the sales and use tax return is only for anyone who has any tangible item. The payroll tax forms are for anyone who's running payroll. And I wanted to actually exit real quick. And let me see, maybe make sure that I'm sharing the correct. So I'm gonna share what some of these tax forms look like. Because again, right now we're in tax season, so I wanted for you guys to all get familiar with some of the taxes. So the main one, right, of course, some people know it, some people don't. But if, usually people do their individual tax returns, so they know the 1040. So the 1040, have your information at the top. Then you'll have, any dependents, your filing status. Then you'll have your income. And then you'll have, what your taxes are, what you got withheld, or if you made any payments to the IRS. And then you'll actually calculate for you what your refund is, if you have any, if you overpaid, or what you owe. So with that, this is just a quick review. I'm not gonna go line by line, but really it makes up of 2 pages. If you are older, you'll have like a 3-page 1040 SR. And it's just good to know that this is pretty much what everybody's looking at year to year, right? They ask you for your tax return. Are the forms. So these numbers get populated by other forms, and usually they're called schedules. So one of the big ones for businesses, for sole proprietors, is what we call the Schedule C. And so this one will tell pretty much anybody about your business as a sole proprietor, or actually if you do a LLC single member, meaning it's just one person, you can treat it as kind of like a sole proprietor type of thing. You don't have to treat it as a corporation unless you want to. So with that one, again, here you are reporting your income. If you're selling any goods, make sure you keep a good inventory because you want to put, the cost of goods sold. Then you have your different expenses. So, like this one's a good form to kind of see like around what expenses you need to, like keep track of, right? Like supplies, some travel that has to do with your business, utilities like phone, internet. So it's just kind of gives you a nice overview. And then in the second page, of course, again, this is where the cost of goods calculation is, meaning your inventory. So make sure you have inventory at the beginning of the year. And then you can keep track of what it is that you bought. And then what the cost is, any materials or labor, and then your inventory at the end. Okay. And then for your vehicle, so for business purposes, know that you can either take the actual expenses or the mileage. So you either can only do one, and once you choose one of them, you have to keep that going forward for that business. And then other expenses, just like it says, anything else that doesn't really fit into these categories, or if you actually want to put more detail instead of putting it all in one of these categories. So that will be your Schedule C. And then this is your California course return, which is the Form 540. That gets this one really gets just filled out based on your federal return. And then this is the 568, which is the LLC return. And it has to do with California, as you can see. So it's not really a federal type of form, it's a California. So I hope, that's just something I wanted to, show, because I think it's important to start getting familiar with this instead of like, like not knowing how this forms even look like. And the other thing I wanted to show you is that you can always find the updated form schedule in the actual entity's site. So like if you go to the IRS, here's the Schedule C. So you can always find the latest revision, and make sure you're in the right site. Don't go to those, scam sites. Go to the irs.gov. Then in the California, you're going to the Franchise Tax Board, which is the ftb.ca.gov. Okay. So that's just a little bit of the tax forms and information. So I hope that was helpful. And then let me go ahead and continue the presentation. Just give me 1 second. Of course, so everybody knows, sales, right? When you're selling something, it's also called, your revenue. It's the money you're bringing in for any goods or services. That's a pretty simple term there. Then, of course, I wanted to go into accounts receivable, what you call AR. So this has to be with clients as customer. So you might know that sometimes you're actually, giving like what we call credit for goods or services, meaning you're telling them, oh, you can pay me in like 10 days, 15, the common one is 30, right? Just know that you want to make sure your accounts receivable and terms match close to your accounts payable. So the payables is the vendor's type. So make sure that you take in mind the terms are matching because of your cash flow. If you're, paying everything in like 30 days, but your customers have net 60, meaning they pay you in 60 days, you're gonna feel really strapped for money. So make sure that is also something to keep in mind when you're setting up different credit terms. Then, of course, make sure you do a nice template for your invoice. That it's good to have good template, because then your business can look more professional. So if you yourself maybe don't feel too comfortable with the computer or creating a template, go ahead and just, like reach out for help. I'm pretty sure someone can help you create something basic in like a Word document or Excel document that could help with it. Okay. Then of course, make sure that you look at your account statements. So this is really for any bills that you owe, but also you can send statements for anyone who owes you. So it goes a bit both ways for accounts receivable and accounts payable. So make sure that you are checking that, so you're able to get that money that people owe you. Okay, don't be afraid to reach out. If you provided a service and you have an agreement with them to pay you and so long, make sure that you follow up, just tell them, hey, I haven't seen a payment. Maybe you missed the payment and didn't apply it to their invoice. You can tell them, hey, I haven't seen it. Can you either provide proof or just let me know when you're, paying? And that will help you also your customer relationship. So again, we talked about the payment terms, so I won't go over to it, but just make sure again that you are aligning your accounts receivable with your accounts payable. And then payroll. So right now, especially in California, it's really becoming important to know whether someone you're hiring is going to be an employee or if they're going to be a contractor. And they're getting more strict about this. I talked about it in the child care, because that's one of the industries that they really are focusing on, but really it's honestly everywhere, because just like maybe you saw the whole issue about the Uber drivers, like wanting, like they're independent contractors, but yet they want, more employee benefits. So there was like a debate, are they employees or are they not? So make sure that you are looking closely to see if someone fits into an employee category or an independent contractor. Some of the ways that I could tell you, the quick ones, but they're not all their requirements. It would be like, do they have a set schedule? If you expect that at a certain time, they don't have flexibility, that's more likely an employee. If they can set their own schedule, they can move things around, that's more like an independent contractor. If they already have a business in place and it doesn't really have to do with your everyday to-day business, that could be a contract. So again, there are some requirements, but just make sure that you keep a close eye on it, because the worst thing is to have to pay back payroll tax. Those add up quick. And then of course, when you're setting up more and you go into your accounting, set up your software, you look closely at the type of accounts that you're setting. And this is where I do recommend to at least get some advice from a professional accountant, tax person, enrolled agent or CPA, where they can help you to know how to categorize your accounts. Because if you don't set them up correctly, your reports might not look correct. So you won't be able to really analyze how you're doing, and then you might be misrepresenting how much of sales you're going to report, and then you could either pay too much taxes, or later on could be less. You could pay too little taxes. So either one, it's not really ideal. Right? So again, with reports, three common reports are income statement, cash flow statement, which is called a lot of times profit and loss, or P&L, and the balance sheet. So these are like the common ones, and really I meant profit and loss and balance sheet. Those are the ones that are interchangeable. And then the cash flow statement which again, it's really what it says, right? Seeing how your cash is flowing. So these are the top ones that you want to look at, but there's also like open accounts receivable, right? The people that owe you, maybe the accounts payable if you're owing anyone. So there's definitely a benefit to at the end upgrade to an accounting software when you're ready. And then the last thing would be for the inventory, right? We talked about in the Schedule C, or just anyone who has inventory, making sure they know how much, supplies are, like something that you have in inventory, because it's also gonna make a difference when you calculate your taxes. Okay, but really that is at least my basic presentation on, the finances. So I hope, that gave you a general idea of, things. And especially with for me, I wanted to emphasize this one on the taxes. And hopefully those forms didn't scare you. That's not really the point of those, but it's just to give you an idea. So, like in, other forms that maybe you are looking at, right, and they get confusing. You have, right, your W-9 where you fill out to get your 1099, right? So it's like you have your, your W-4 to see your withholdings for your W-2, right? So it's like, so there's a lot of different terms, but just make sure that if you don't quite understand it, for me, it's like, oh, just reach out, send me a question, an email, and I try to get back to you as soon as possible to like at least give you a quick review, especially if it's a quick question. Okay, but right now I will turn it, on for any questions. I think I saw some in the chat maybe. I don't know if Alex I know he was been an eye.
Great. Thank you, Zaida. Thank you for this amazing workshop. We'll now open it up for any questions. We want to make sure that we give you the time to ask any specific questions or any specific comment that you would like to share. So we can take questions now. We have about 15 minutes. So yeah, we'll take any questions.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica. I'm the Child Care Incubator Director. I just wanted to say if there's si hay algunas personas que están, veo que unos participantes del programa de Child Care están presentes. Si tienen preguntas, se vale también decir en español. If you have any questions in Spanish regarding taxes, you can also, this is your opportunity. Esta es su oportunidad. Con Zaida. Thank you. And thank you for being here.
Oh, yes, thank you. I know, don't be too intimidated with the
Don't be shy. No tengan
don't be
vergüenza.
shy.
No se preocupen.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll ask on behalf of them because I know there's some.
Well, I have a quick question if someone
Yes.
doesn't have one.
ahead.
I have hi, my name is Elliot. So I am starting kind of what is like a notary service. And what I wanted to know is, do you have well, first off, like a bank, an online bank that you recommend, or that you guys have worked with that you find that would be easy to work with? I get a lot of, I assume that there's going to be a lot of payments that are going to be done online, and I don't necessarily want to use Venmo. I know definitely Zelle is something that I want to be able to have my clients access. And then internationally also that I could send monies to, because I have international attorneys that I'm working with. So that would be something that I would really appreciate some help with. And then also, is there something that you recommend for bookkeeping? Like, is Intuit like a good one, or TurboTax? Like, what are some of the things that you found have worked or that are very user friendly?
Yes, that's lots of good questions in one.
Thank you.
So, yeah, and congrats on the notary for sure. That's always needed. I know you mentioned the international. So first I was gonna give you one direction and then I think I went another one. So I know right now the one that at least I have worked with is what used to be Union Bank and now became US Bank. I know maybe the farmers and merchants, but like usually, you know, if you already have, you know, like all your EIN and everything, you can, you know, open up a business checking with those banks, right? They require, you know, your EIN to be established, like and you can connect it with all that based on your business. Know that for international, like sometimes they will have, you know, some wire fees. Usually the common is the wire, and they might take, you know, a few days. But yeah, it shouldn't be a problem with, you know, setting up to one of those banks. Then I know with Zelle, any of the big banks are the good ones. I myself, like here and there, play around with the online banks. So I do have an Ally. With the Ally, there are purely, there's no brick and mortar. They're online bank, right? Solely. I do also have what they call Relay Financial, and Relay Financial is because of profit first. So if everyone, I do recommend this book just at least to get an idea of you know, how to already start thinking about bringing in profit instead of like thinking you have to spend so much, you know, to make a business work. And that's his concept, right? So profit first, at least he kind of like gives a structure where you break down your accounts. And so with that, you are able to do like accounting easier in a sense, because you're not doing accounting all the time. That's his concept too. So it's actually a pretty interesting concept that I do recommend people explore, you know, and then you can maybe put kind of like a variation of that, right? Like you don't have to put all that in it, but at least that's a good one to explore. As for bookkeeping, yeah, they honestly, to me, I do keep, and most of my clients always, QuickBooks is the big one. QuickBooks Online makes things easier when you sync up banks, and a lot of these banks can be synced up to that. I do sometimes also recommend people to look in your federal credit unions. I myself have Connecta, but like there are other ones, you know, out there that sometimes don't also charge so many other fees, right? I know banks in general are trying to just get away from charging fees because really it's unnecessary for the most part. So I would say if you have like a mix, which also, again, apart from all those bank scandals that have been in the news lately, is highly recommended, just like diversifying, right? Making sure you have, you know, a few accounts that you can keep your money in. And if you ever make, you know, like more than what can be insured by an account, make sure you have multiple accounts too, so your money is always insured by those. So that really is my recommendation. I did see also something about any free apps, keep track receipts, expenses. You know, QuickBooks Online does have their QuickBooks app that you can also incorporate. For like my personal budget, I have used the Every Dollar app, but I know there's also the Mint app. So some of them where you can actually even like sync to a bank, just like you can with QuickBooks sync to your bank. And the good thing, like, and what I always tell people too, is that think of your business, your small business especially, and as an extension of you. So whatever you do individually, right, like as what you're prone to do in spending on an individual basis, you most likely are gonna do in your business. So you kind of like, they go together. You have to, like, if you wanna get better at savings, it's like if you start incorporate it in an individual level, it'll be easier to incorporate that in a business level. So yeah, but those would be like some of my recommendations, at least, or I've seen works. Okay.
Thank you so much for that. Very helpful.
Okay, I'm glad. Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you for your great question, Elia. And also thank you, Yvonne, for asking that question as well. We have one more question. It was sent directly to me. If you can quickly go over how to begin an LLC. So maybe just covering perhaps the paperwork, where they can find it, and what the steps that they need to take in order to file it.
Okay, yes, let me see. So I was here on the already site, so I'm gonna go there again. So yes, LLCs have become pretty popular. So I have seen in the tax world, and I do deal more with individual level of entities. So I do deal with like single member LLCs, but that's not the only type of LLCs, right? As we talked, there's also like where there's multiple owners. So it's good to get an idea here on the franchise tax board, right? Because this is they're the ones who actually oversee the LLCs here in California. And so if you're starting it here, this is where you will be going to get everything started. So here already gives you a good like resource tool where you have to register, who you have to contact, and because you could always contact them for support. And really, I think California wants to incentivize LLCs to be started because they're getting, at least, if not anything, they get the annual tax. So LLCs have to pay an annual tax each year, and I'll go here, of $800. So they were waiving them for a time, but that right now finished, so that you have to pay those again. And then if you're making more than 250, it goes up by 100. So of course, the more money you make, the more of that annual fee you have to pay. But really, for the most part, everybody starts with the $800 that you have to pay by, really, they say the fourth month of the 15th day, which is tax day, April 15th. So by then they want you to be able to pay your annual tax. So usually what people do is when they file their LLC return, they also send already their annual tax. So as for starting an LLC, you just want to make sure it's a little similar, that you have to already know, okay, do I want to use doing business as, or I don't, meaning reserving a name, which with the OC recorder, right? And then if you go through that process, at least you have already a name you want to do. Then you want to start the LLC paperwork, which I do have to say, a lot of people don't actually do that themselves. The big place and it's, I'm not selling anything, right? But the big place people go to is LegalZoom. So in LegalZoom or businesses like that, they help you fill out pretty much everything that is required, because it's not just like one paperwork solely, it's like a few requirements. So here it kind of tells you, like the fees, but you also have to like kind of put in like who's gonna be like board members, like kind of how you're gonna set up. And then and so because of all those extra requirements, usually people like do hire someone. So at least that's what I can say is the most common one. And then again, I deal more with the single member LLCs. And this is because they don't have as many requirements, meaning you don't have to file corporation tax or like a partnership type of tax form, a tax return. So I would say that, like, if you're doing a single member LLC, at least it's usually a little bit simpler. But yeah, it's just make sure that it is something that you want to undertake, pay that annual tax, because also the other thing that could vary is your actual tax return fee. Like like a sole proprietor or someone who's not doing LLC, you're gonna pay usually less to have your return file than if you're doing a corporate tax or LLC. The fees start being more because it's a little bit more complex. So at least that's kind of like my little review on LLCs. I hope that helps a little.
Thank you, Zaida. And thank you, Olga, for the great question. We have a few more questions in the chat. Let's start with the first one. So the first one is, which method do you prefer that these clients contact you if they have a question?
Oh, yeah. So usually email is the best. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my email here in the chat. So this is like my best like business email that gets forwarded to my personal email too. So I'm seeing all these emails, both, all the time. And so usually what I do is I start flagging them and then like getting back to them, usually my time frame is, less than a week, but just be patient with me. And in that, but like I try to at least, acknowledge it and then just let them know in how long I can follow up. Okay, if it's something that I have to do a little more researching.
Great. Thank you, Zaida. And then we have another question from a client. If I want to start a tax service business, how many or which licenses do I need to start looking at?
Well, for sure, in the tax, you wanna do, if you haven't done your certification, meaning your CTEC at least, you definitely wanna do that first. So meaning, this is governed by the state of California, and it's kind of like you could say the lower of the licenses to look in. And it requires a process, meaning like you have to get, your fingerprint scanning. You have to go through the course, which it could be online or in person. And, it's a 60-hour course. And then you have to pass, the test there and the course, whether they are part of it or, or separate, but you gotta do that. And everything gets reported to the CTEC site. And then, of course, you wanna, for an actual business, so you're working under someone, you have to get the business license for that service. And really with that, as long as you have all those two, then you can practice already doing taxes. So you pass those, then of course you can do more. You can be an enrolled agent or a CPA, but at least with the basics, that's what we do.
Great. Thank you, Zaida. And then we have a few more questions. I think we'll take about 3 more questions. I know
Okay.
we're gonna run out of time. But yeah, one of the next questions is, what is the best method of ownership? And I think this is more in regards to business entities. So maybe from your experience, if you can share some of that.
Well, I always say people to start lower than to start higher. Like it's harder to close an entity that's higher than to close an entity that's lower, let's say. So like usually like you can do sole proprietor first, and then later on you can do an LLC or S corp or C corp. Some people bypass the LLCs, go directly to a corp. So it's just better to try, like if you're unsure, go with the lower one first, because you can always go up, and it's harder to start closing all the the higher ones because they have more requirements. So it's like you did so much work and then like you have to close those down.
Great. Thank you. And thank you for the question, Celine. And Celine has another question. She's currently a paralegal. She's studying as a paralegal and is working in a firm, but she would like to open up a similar business on her own. And then her question is she able to start this business with some sort of certification, if you're familiar with that?
Yeah, as far as I know, and maybe I'm not like too familiar on the paralegal one. I I think though there are more bar whenever thing is legal, right? It's in anything in California especially, they don't want you to probably like for sure practice unless you have completed those certification. And you can even get more insight by actually like trying to do the business license. They'll probably because they always ask what industry you're in, so based on that they'll ask for the requirements. So yeah, you can always follow up with me with an email, and I can see if I can look more into that. Sometimes I can see my network if they have more advice on that specific question.
Great. Thank you. And then we'll do 2 more since we're running low on time. We have a question from Yvonne. Her question is, she's looking to sell nightlight products, and she wants to determine how much tax to include to make sure that she's pretty much breaking even. So do you recommend or have any resources where she can find some of those taxes and how to price it?
Well, definitely the CDTFA. So that's where the sales and use tax, and they're very good at responding. So you always can actually reach out to them and by email even, and they can give you a good idea. As for taxes too, I think they have a list, if I'm not mistaken, that one that has a list of kind of the areas. The thing is that if you are, depending where you're shipping, usually it's like how much the tax will be. So some actually have higher because of district tax. So that's the only hard part. Sometimes you at least have to, want to consider like the basic tax, like like the 7.25 or the 7.75, like whatever the basic one is, and then without the district, and then add that on. But yeah, like that usually gets, and that's why a lot of sites, it depends where you live or where you're shipping, that determines your tax, right? If you get something in your cart and they usually already like know, unless you type in your zip code, that's when you know how much the shipping is. So try to look into one of those sites that helps you.
Great, thank you. And then we'll close it off with this last one. Are LLCs necessary for any small business?
No, no, that's yeah, so it's not necessary to have an LLC. There's a lot of sole proprietors. That's usually how a lot of people start, I want to say, like the majority. But some people move or are more depending on the industry, right? How much liability there is. Sometimes that's why people have decided to do LLCs, because of course we live in a time when it's easier to sue people. And unfortunately with that, you carry on some liability. So just make sure that like if you are in an industry that is prone to more of that, you better either have more insurance on yourself or also start separating, especially if you have really assets that are high value, such as a house.
Great. Those are all amazing questions and comments. I really appreciate the depth of this discussion so far. As we wrap up, keep an eye out for the email containing the recording of the workshop. It will be sent out hopefully by tomorrow. A big thank you to Zaida for making this workshop happen and answering all of our questions that were very, very complicated. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time and joining us today. Have a great evening, and we look forward to seeing you in our future workshops. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
With your business. Thank you.
Thank you, Zaida. Did great. Bye,
Thanks.
everybody. Bye, Cello. Bye. Bye, Olga.